Hi everyone, Eugene here, and today I've got a special treat. We're going to go behind the scenes with our content production team. So this is Zach.
Hi.
Zach is a content strategist, and we're going to spend some time with him talking about content. Now, content is kind of thrown around a lot, and everybody says that every brand or every business needs to be creating content on a regular basis. And so we wanted to kind of demystify that whole process and take you behind the scenes, talk about the real value of content, talk about how much you should be doing, and why. Why should we be doing this? And if there's any tools or ideas or time that could make life easier for everyone as they're creating content. So Zach, let's just jump into it. I think the question that everyone's always going to ask if they're new to content production, or if they've just kind of tried and not sure where they landed, the question that everybody is always going to ask is, okay, why should I be doing this? What's the value in creating a bunch of content?
Yeah, it's an understandable question. I get asked it a lot. And I always try to tell people the point of content isn't just to fill up space on your website, although that's what a lot of people think it's for. The point of content is to make you another trusted voice for your customers. This is going to be part of your brand. This is part of who you are as a company. This is not just filling up space. And that's part of being a trusted resource for your customer. So they come to your Facebook page, and imagine if it's totally empty, it looks totally like a shell company, they're not going to trust you. At the same time, if it's full of nonsense that's not related to your company, they're also not going to trust you. This has to be targeted content that makes sense with whatever message you're trying to send and whatever brand you're trying to build.
Right, I think you make a great point. It's got to be targeted, and you've got to have an understanding of who it's for. And let's just kind of bounce through the types of content that people could be looking at or could be creating. Do you have to write and create everything from scratch, or what can you do?
No, I always tell people to start off by looking at what others have written and what others have made video about, what others are tweeting. If you have an Instagram, what's on there, because chances are you're not going to be the first company doing what you're doing. There's another conversation already happening out there. What's it look like? What are the trends that are happening? Who's reading it? Who's viewing it? What's going on? That's what you need to keep in mind.
When we're talking about where content is on the web, we're talking about Facebook, what else?
Well, you've also got Twitter, you've got Instagram, you've got Snapchat even. I've been hearing a lot about that. There are all of these platforms, there are all these places it could be happening. But the important thing to keep in mind is, where are your customers? Different customers on different platforms. If they're younger, they're probably on more mobile pages. If they're not quite as young, they're going to be on Facebook more. They're going to be using your actual website. It's always important to keep in mind, who is this content for?
Yeah, so let's talk about content ideas. I mean, you already mentioned a little bit about going out and doing a tremendous amount of research to understand what the conversations are like out there. I always tell people, if it's whether I'm talking to a dentist, or if I'm talking to a large furniture store, or really anybody, I think usually where I start is I say, look, just write down all the questions your customers are asking, so you can at least get a sense of what ballpark the conversation's actually in. So write down the top 5 questions that people ask you. If you're the dentist and people are sitting in the chair and they go, oh, does this always hurt? Or something like that. Well, write that down. Does a cavity hurt? And then, that could be a perfect start of a content strategy. But I think you run out of those pretty quickly. So where do you go next?
Well, from there are various tools that can help you out. There are some things that can tell you what's the conversation. You can type in a few keywords, it'll tell you where's the conversation going from here. It can even make projections about where it might go. There are tools that help you figure out all in one place, what is everyone talking about? So instead of going from over there and trying to find this niche website, it'll bring it all into one place. You can try to figure out, what are my competitors talking about? It's often snooping onto what your competitors are doing is a good way of finding out things you didn't think about yourself, and maybe that's another way you could attract their customers. If you notice a trend within there, you can pick up on it and do it in your own place and get those customers and talk about maybe what others haven't been talking about, or you can put your own spin on what others are talking about. There's plenty of conversations that you can keep rehashing and it gets kind of boring, but if you talk about something in a new, novel way, it's still relevant and interesting.
Well, and you brought something up about tools. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. What are the kinds of tools that are out there that really help you do your job? Because this is all you do day in and day out.
Yeah, this is what I do. It's my stock and trade, and there are plenty of tools out there. There are tools for almost every part of this process you can imagine. There are tools that help you figure out what's being said. There are tools that tell you what is your audience. There are tools that tell you if the grammar in the thing you've just produced is correct. There are tools that tell you if the video you've produced is going to get a lot of clicks. There are tools that tell you what the actual value of your Facebook page could be if you were to charge somebody to post on it. There are all of these tools out there. Some of them are better than others. I will say that I use a lot of them myself, but some of them I leave behind because To be completely honest, they're very expensive, and I think a lot of the work doing into this is just going to have to be dedicated work on content. There's no cure, there's no magic technique for putting somebody in a chair and having them do this work day in and day out.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point you bring up. If a typical business owner wants to have a content strategy of any sort of meaningful value, right? It's kind of silly to just produce one blog post every 6 months and say, well, I've got a content strategy. So if somebody wants to have a content strategy of any sort of meaningful value, how much time should they really spend on this?
I would tell them that we produce content and we start thinking about content a month before that content has to go live, just to give you an idea. And then on top of that, I'm spending, my full work day doing this. If I'm not actually producing content, I'm reading other people's content. I'm going to various parts of the internet trying to figure out what are people talking about. I'm looking at other folks' Facebook pages. This is a time dedication. 1 month before is, I think, cutting it rather close, actually. Sometimes you have to think about these things 2 or 3 months before.
Yeah. So, Zach, again, we're kind of behind the scenes with you, and I really want to give people a little bit of insight into kind of our production process and our internal process. Is there anything that you think that kind of stands out, or anything that you like best about how we at National Strategic make content?
Well, actually, what I do like here is that whenever it's time for my pitching, I can just go to you, I can go to Cameron, and it's quite an open and accepting environment. We toss around ideas. It's great. It's always nice to be surrounded by fellow marketers, people who get what you're doing here. So even if I can't talk to you, I can just go to somebody else. I can go upstairs. I can be like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? Where's it going to go from here? It's great working here.
Yeah, it's fun because we like to pitch everything to each other and see like if the message sticks. So I love, I have to say I love when you come with 12 different ideas and 2 or 3 of them are just like rock star stuff that just like that's really link bait for a client. So I think that's really cool. I guess if we were going to wrap things up and we were to leave our audience with one really, I guess, takeaway, whether they're using us for content or whether they're using somebody else or they're doing it themselves, what would you say kind of a big takeaway point is for folks?
There's this popular conception that you're going to have a battle between quality and quantity, and people always say, oh, it's quantity over quality. But actually, you have a battle between having no strategy and having a strategy when it comes to content.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully this has been interesting for folks. Please go ahead and leave us a comment below. And of course, if you have any questions or if you want to send us a quick email, you can always do so at the link below.